Hello and welcome to Anfield Agenda, where we have a bit of a different video this morning. So, obviously, very disappointing result yesterday, but we're not here to discuss that at the current moment. Jurgen Klopp has sat down with Stephen Bartlett on his podcast, The Diary of a CEO, and I've just finished watching the interview. I've taken some notes. I'm going to just go through some of the main talking points, give you a rundown of what was discussed, let you know if it is worth watching, if it is worth investing 2.5 hours of your time into it. The link for that podcast is linked in the description below, so please do check it out if you want to. Like I said, I'm going to go through all the main talking points, so let's jump into it. First thing then, he was kind of talking about his parents and his upbringing. If you're interested in his early life, there's a good insight on that. They were speaking about dressing room management and like managing players differently based on like their ages, their culture, stuff like that, and what they need. And like we're kind of drawing comparisons to the business world, where as a CEO, let's say, you need to be kind of consistent with everyone, but Klopp made the kind of comparison of how we would treat someone like a Trent Alexander-Arnold coming through at the age of 17 compared to a James Milner who's the age of 33. And there was a few kind of very interesting points. One in particular that stood out to me was he was kind of speaking about how to like motivate players when they're from such different backgrounds and different ages and stuff. And he basically said like you need to make the sun so blatantly obvious, like the sun being your end goal, that everyone just gravitates towards that anyway. And I thought that was a good way of putting it. Like make the end goal so blatantly obvious that everyone is already heading in that direction, and all you need to do then is give them like bits of nudges and stuff that way to get them back on track. But like there's some fascinating insight. I'm not doing it justice the analogy he was making, obviously, but yeah, like really fascinating insight into the mind of Jurgen Klopp on that one, and how he treats players and how he motivates players. So definitely an interesting point there. He then told a great story of how the Mainz manager at the time when Jurgen Klopp was coming to the end of his career, basically he went from being a player to being the manager at Mainz. So he kind of explained how that came around. There was a good story about the current manager basically doing a "Do you trust me?" exercise on the players, and the outcome of that was not what the manager expected. So he's then speaking about, he was asked about like does he protect players in the media. So like in interviews, like we often say like we don't really fully trust what the club is saying or what Arne Slot says in the press conference nowadays, let's say. And he just there's some interesting insights again on like just player welfare, making sure that they're hearing what they need to hear rather than what they want to hear, but also ultimately protecting them from the media as well. So one part in particular then I really enjoyed was he was speaking about players putting up posts on social media and then like deleting them. So like there might be a 3 a.m. tweet that goes out and then instantly gets deleted. He was speaking about this and said like if that did happen, he often would go into the dressing room the next day and be like, right, well, let's discuss that post then. What? Anything to share with the group? Really just put the player on the spot. And he said, like, once he started doing that, it really just stopped. No one dared to do anything again in that way to avoid the public embarrassment of having to explain a 3 a.m. tweet or a post on Instagram or whatever it would be, criticizing or just giving out in general, stuff like that. Like, it's a really fascinating story to hear, and definitely, I can see how that would work. I would not like to be put on the spot in that situation if that was me. On top of that, then there was a nice story of how like he got the call to be the Liverpool manager. He said like he was on holidays with his family at the time, and there was just some nice story about like how his kids reacted to it and stuff like that. He went on in detail then as well, discussing the time he rejected Manchester United right after Fergie left. So some of the reasons like as to why he didn't think that was a good project for him, like he gave specifics on what the fit was there. He gave specific reasons as to why that wasn't the right fit, while a Liverpool project was. So he spoke very highly of Mike Gordon of FSG, who would have been one of the main people speaking to him as they were trying to convince him to become Liverpool manager, and he had very high praise for him. He spoke then about the struggles of implementing a style of play when you are managing a team like Liverpool who play pretty much every 3 days at times or 3 times a week. He pretty much said like you have to just get every little small teachable moment in at some point. Like you don't have time to really sit down and implement something for weeks on end. So you need to just take the mini victories and just keep pushing the team in the direction you want to be, rather than making like a wholesale change over the course of a 3 week boot camp. Like it's just not really possible outside of preseason. And even then you have disrupted preseason from injuries and World Cups and World Cups, everything. Like there's always stuff getting in the way, so you have to just take these mini victories in getting the team towards where you want them to be. And he said that stability is number one, two, and three on the priority list, and make them run like hell. Basically, is what he said. So yeah, so he spoke then about like the organized chaos. I think was the phrase he used. Just he wants his players knowing what they're doing. He wants stability on the pitch. He wants like defensive stability. Everyone has to be defending, and I thought it was just a good insight into again the mindset he tried to implement into Liverpool straight away when he came in. And yeah, just stuff like that. It was a very interesting insight. He then spoke about the fact that they had a party after the Europa League final loss, and like how important these things are to the mindset of a player, or the whole mindset of a team in general. Like, you need to celebrate the stuff. You need to find something to celebrate still, basically, is what he was saying. Like, you need to take the positives out of things. Like, yes, we lost the Europa League final, but that doesn't mean you should be just upset and depressed about it. Like, we should celebrate the fact that we got to the final in the first place, and it won't be the last. That was the start of that journey for Liverpool under Jurgen Klopp, so it definitely wasn't the end. And I think he wanted to just instill that into the players that quickly. And he made reference as well to the time where we drew with West Brom and the players went over to thank the fans. And we still get comments on stuff nowadays about that, like how embarrassing it was and stuff. But that is Jurgen Klopp laying down the foundation for the togetherness of that team, the harmony between the players and the fans as well. Like, these things matter. Like, you can call it embarrassing if you want, but he did that. He created a culture at Liverpool that brought us to many, many trophies. So I don't know how people can still go on about these things nowadays when it's clearly it has worked. So, like I said, it's very important to create that mindset at a club, and Kloppo does touch on that in the video. Speaking of Arne Slot, then replacing him as Liverpool manager, he said basically that he thought it was very smart not to change too much in the first season. Like, I know we were all screaming our heads off wanting signings that summer, but maybe there is something to it. To be fair, like Kloppo agreed with that keeping the team as it was. Like, even Stephen Bartlett even chimed in here as well and said that he knows one of the Liverpool players, and they themselves personally said that the best thing Arne could have done was not change too much when he came in. Like, don't rock the ship too much and just stick to what they were already doing, and make small tweaks, obviously. But yeah, to hear like one of the Liverpool players themselves said that is very reassuring that it was definitely the right decision, to be fair. So but yeah, Kloppo was full of praise for Arne. Went on then to speak about the big summer this season, and again he says like the change will always take time when you have a lot of new faces coming in. Like he said about Wirtz and Isak and giving them time, and basically said that people will eat their words on Florian Wirtz because he's just that good, and he is going to come good. And like I said, you just need time to implement these things. But yeah, even putting perspective on that, then like he said, you cannot always be champion, spend money and then win again. You need luck in moments and stuff like that. Like it's not as simple as you are the best team, you spend money, and you're still the best team, even better. Like that's not how football works. It probably works sometimes, but it's not a guaranteed thing that you're going to win back to back titles just because you've bought reinforcements. He then gave a bit of an insight into like his time with the club. Like, he was basically asked like, did FSG give him money to spend? And he basically said about like the stands being built, the training ground being built, the mindset that the team would go into a transfer window, like the team being Klopp and his coaching staff, his scouts, like the sporting director, whoever was there at the time, like how they go about managing the transfer market, as in they've been discussing all season, right? We need X, Y, and Z. How can we actually get that? And basically, we want to get to the end of the transfer window with the best possible squad that we can have. And once that transfer window closes, that is it. That is the best team we could have. So we need to get the most out of that and not think about what we missed out on. Just stuff like that. Again, another fascinating insight. I'm sure a lot of you will be interested, of course, in his insight on the transfer window and stuff like that, because it's a big part of fandom, really, isn't it? Like following transfer links and debating about whether we should have bought X, Y, and Z or sold whoever. Like, so it's interesting to hear from his perspective. Speaking then about why he decided to leave Liverpool, again, he kind of just explained that he realised he wasn't the guy anymore. He realised he didn't have the energy to think long term into the future, and he said he basically wanted to walk away before it got to the point where everyone else realised he wasn't the guy anymore and he had to be sacked. And I think that self awareness is just incredible. Like, it just sounded like complete mental burnout, in all honesty. Like, he was talking about some of the roles he had to fill. He basically said that the club have now like created more of a structure which takes a lot of pressure off the manager. So like we've seen, of course, like the change in wording, even like Arne Slot is not the manager, he's the head coach. And we've brought in Richard Hughes, Michael Edwards, Julian Ward. Like, we have a structure now for big decision making, squad planning, all that stuff. It does sound like a lot of that fell on Jurgen Klopp. Like he said, no decision was ever purely just his. Like, there was always input from the club's lawyers, the coaches, the scouts, everyone. But it does sound like there was a lot of pressure put on him. So it's good to see that the club have learned from that and really implemented more of a team to make these big decisions and take a little bit of the pressure off the manager. The big headline then from all the clips you see on social media this morning, all the quotes, is he was asked basically, would he ever go back to Liverpool? And Stephen Bartlett did, of course, bring up the quote that Jurgen Klopp once said that basically he would never manage another team in England. To which Klopp replied, theoretically, it would be possible to go back to Liverpool. He doesn't miss the coaching, he doesn't miss the constant interviews, the press conferences, the pressure of being a manager. Like he said, he is coaching now, but in a very different capacity, helping young players in the Red Bull setup. And it doesn't sound like he wants to come back into managing anytime soon, from what I heard from him anyway. He didn't rule it out, of course. Like, so it is, maybe it is possible. Maybe he comes back in 3 or 4 years' time. He said he's not ruling out return to management in his career, but if he had to make a decision right now, he would say no, but never say never. Yeah, definitely not the best time for those quotes to be coming out saying that he would be open to a Liverpool return when the pressure is starting to mount on Arne Slot, of course. So good timing for Stephen Bartlett, of course. He gets a belter of a title and a few good quotes out of it as well. But yeah, I don't think we're going to see Jurgen Klopp back at Anfield anytime soon in a managing capacity. Maybe he visits for games, but I wouldn't be getting my hopes up that he will be the replacement for Arne Slot if you're that way inclined. The interview then did finish up with just talk around like how to get the best out of people, creating the best team, the best environment. Like he said about respecting the tea ladies, to the gardener, to the cleaning staff, everyone. Just you need to build that culture around the club or around any company. Like again, speaking in broader business terms, you need to just create an environment where everyone feels like this is a special place where things can get done. I'm not doing him justice whatsoever with this video, to be fair. Like, he's so articulate, he's so insightful. Like, the things he comes out with is just, it's fascinating. And I 100% would encourage you to watch the full interview if you can. There are timestamps on the interview if there's certain parts you're more interested in others. But yeah, a very good interview overall. Great work by Stephen Bartlett, of course, to get the good answers out of him. I thought the interview was structured very well. He touched on Diogo's death, of course, and the impact it had on him. He spoke very beautifully about that. He spoke about his own mother's death and some of the struggles towards the end of her life with her health problems, the fact he couldn't travel to the funeral due to COVID restrictions. So, a very good insight into the man Jurgen Klopp is, and a fascinating insight into how some of the decisions were made around his time at Liverpool, how the club operates. But again, the self-awareness that he showed, I think, is just, it can't be understated. The fact that he knew it was the time to step down, walk away, and pass the team on to the next manager. And no one really does that in football. Like, how many managers have done that? How many managers have overstayed their welcome and not known when was the time to leave? So, again, we can only give a debt of gratitude to Jurgen Klopp for his time at the club. Fantastic man, fantastic manager, and yes, I would fully encourage you to go watch the full interview. That's all for me anyway. Craig will be back this evening. I'm sure he'll be giving a fairly scathing review of the game yesterday. He was at the match, of course, so looking forward to that one. I'm looking forward to that one as much as all of you guys. I'm interested to hear his take on everything that happened yesterday. So please do hit the subscribe button before you head out. Hit the like button, all that stuff, and I will talk to you very soon. Thank you very much for watching, and like I said, the podcast is linked in the description of the video if you want to check it out. So thanks very much. See you soon.